What's up, YouTube? I'm gonna share a story with you. Personal experience. Everything is facts. So, it's a story about guns and my first experience with handguns. Sipping my tea, light my cigar. Well, it's already lit. Here we go. So, I guess I had to be about maybe 5, 6, maybe 7. But what I can say for sure is it was before I was in the 6th grade. Say that. And my stepdad, he used to get off work, and he had a routine every day where ultimately he would end up on the couch, either sitting up like I am now, or eventually laying across after he take a shower and whatnot, eat, watch the news. I can remember hearing him get pissed off at some story on the news or some law or something that's passed or something that the government's doing. And I used to always wonder, why you even watch it? You get pissed off every day. But, so he had a routine. And this particular day, he ended up parallel on the couch. So he started out sitting up, but he ended up laying down watching something. And he slowly fell asleep. And I don't even know if he knew, but I knew he used to keep what I know now to be a 38 snub nose, 38 special under his pillow every night. I'm not sure how he used to carry it or whatnot. We talking about probably late 70s, early to mid 80s. Wasn't even the 90s. So he would he would keep his gun under his pillow, 38 special. I didn't know that's what it was. I just knew it was a gun. I didn't even know it was a revolver. I just knew it was a gun. It was really pretty. I never saw the details until this particular day. So when he ended up parallel on the couch, he fell asleep. Now mind you, all the lights are on. When you walked in this particular house, it seemed like it was huge when I was a kid, but looking back, going over there now and seeing the house, it was small. But from the moment you walk in the front door, there's a couch right here. And from that couch position, you can see straight through the house all the way to the kitchen and the other adjacent rooms and more room to the back. And all the lights were on. So, but he was asleep. He looked to be asleep. TV was on. I'm in the dining room area. He's in the living room, another room over. So I say he's about 25, 30 feet right in front of me on the couch. And I don't know what made me curious that day. I don't really know what led up to, but I know it was just him and myself there that day. For that day, I wanted to see his gun. So when he fell asleep, well, I thought he was asleep. He wasn't asleep though. But so I went in there and went under the pillow and grabbed his 38 special. I instinctively knew. I don't know how I knew this because I don't necessarily remember being taught this, but I instinctively knew not to grab the trigger. So I grabbed it by the handle like this. And his 38 is similar to this one, but this is a 45 and it's nickel plated. His was black and shiny, and he had a wood grain handle on it, and it had two like horses on each side, a big horse on this side and a big horse on this side. So it was just beautiful. This part was really shiny black wood grain handle. So similar to this, but not really, but it was a revolver like this. So I grabbed the revolver by the handle. I remember carrying it like this, and I got right in the middle of the floor, right in front of him. He was sleeping now, but he was looking in my direction, and his eyes was closed. And I just got in the middle of the floor, had green carpet, and I just put the gun down on the floor, like my hand represents the floor. I just put it down on the floor like this. I looked at the handle. That's when I noticed the horses. I hadn't noticed that at first. I hadn't noticed the details. I just used to see it from far away. Looked at it, picked it up, flipped it over, still knowing not to touch this trigger. But I looked at it, I was like, oh man. Flipped it back over, just like that, went, put it back under his pillow. So that my anxiety, I didn't even know it was called anxiety at the time, but my anxiety was so high because I thought I had just got away with looking at his pistol or touching that gun. That was the first time I ever touched it, and it was loaded. I never touched the trigger or nothing like that. Mind you, I grew up in a house with guns everywhere. It was never a gun safe, never anything locked up. We always knew he kept a gun here, he kept a gun here. It was always guns strategically placed all over the house. And we knew instinctively as kids, you don't touch the guns. We never even had the idea. We never even heard stories, stuff like that. However, so I guess my anxiety was so high that, I don't know if you know about anxiety, when your heart get to pumping and all your juices get to flowing and your adrenaline is going, you gotta pee sometime. So I had to pee. So I just went in the bathroom, pee, used the bathroom, came out, washed my hands, came out. And when I came out, he was sitting upright on the couch. Mind you, 2 minutes might have passed. He was sitting upright on the couch, staring right at me and asked me, what was you doing fucking with my gun? Just like that. And I said some old school Charlie Brown womp, womp, womp shit. He said, come here. And I'm crying, coming towards him as slow as I can. And it like Batman, like the black Batman that my father was, he grabbed me by both my hands, my wrists. He had one hand on both my wrists. And he grabbed his belt from around his waist at the same time. So it was like this. Both my hands up in the air, my feet barely on the ground. He whipped the belt out. Don't you ever, blah, 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 something. I can't remember what he was saying, but it was pointing to, don't you ever touch that gun again, ever. And I remember he didn't whip me a long time, but he didn't take my clothes off. It was through my jeans, but it hurted so bad. It was mostly scary. A couple of the shots hurt, but it was mostly scary, but I got the message. Stay away from them guns, you know. You fast forward a few years later, you know, I'm an avid gun owner, responsible. He taught me responsibility in that moment. This is without gun safes and all these safe things we have in place as parents today. It is possible to teach your kids about gun safety, or any ignorant person, not necessarily kids, but specifically kids that don't know about guns. It's possible to teach them gun safety and to be safe with your handguns around other people. Because my father did it in the late 70s, early 80s. So from that point on, I knew to be a lot more responsible with guns, and I only evolved and got better. So please, if you own handguns, firearms, please be safe around children and ignorant adults. Peace. Black Mud. What's good, YouTube? I'm gonna share another story with y'all. Another real life experience. All facts. Hope y'all checked my first video out that I did, my first experience with a firearm. Y'all check that video out on my channel, Black Mud. But this is part 2 of this new thing that I'm doing, just trying to share some experiences of mine to maybe give those who care enough some insight on what makes Black Mud, Black Mud. So all my stories are gonna be firearm related. So like I said, check my first video out, my first experience. Hope it helped. I hope it helped. So this one is gonna be titled "My Second Experience." Mind you, everything that I'm telling you is actual facts as best I can remember it. Every situation, this particular situation that I'm gonna tell you about today, this took place between the 1st and the 5th grade for me. So I probably looked something like this. That's me right there. So that was before the 6th grade for me. Another experience, the first experience was with my stepdad. My very first, I told you about him. Well, that's my stepdad right there. Real hardworking, strong-willed, community, the community loved him. My stepdad, but I call him my dad. Anyway, light my cigar up. Sip my tea. All right, here we go. So, like I said, I was probably about 6, 7, 8, somewhere around there. Before the 5th grade, I wrote what I was. Again, this is my second experience ever in life with a firearm. So I had a friend that stayed in our neighborhood. He was a little older than me. I'd say I was probably in the 4th or 5th grade. And I believe he was probably in junior high school. He was probably like in the 7th or 8th grade. I'll just call his name M. And I won't say anybody's name, but these are actual people, actual facts, actual stories. So back in the late 70s, early 80s, boom boxes were real popular. They played cassette tapes, big old radios, boom boxes that people would carry around on their shoulders or had a strap on it, carry it around, playing loud music. It was really popular. I don't know if you remember, if anybody's old enough to remember LL Cool J's first album. His album cover, the album was the picture of a boombox. It had 3 big speakers on it. Well, that particular boombox, when he came out with that on his album cover, everybody in the neighborhood wanted that particular boombox. But this is even before the album cover. The boombox was out before the album cover. LL Cool J just came out with an album a few years later with this same boombox on the cover. However, the guy I knew, he was everybody in the neighborhood was a real close-knit neighborhood, and the guy I knew, he said his dad was going to buy him a boombox. He showed us a picture. I can't remember the details, but it was in some magazine. He showed everybody a picture. It was this big old boombox. Everybody was just taken aback by it. 3 big woofers, cassette player. It was just sweet for the time. Had an equalizer on it that you could set. It was really high end for the time. Late 70s, early 80s. So his dad was gonna buy it for his birthday. So his birthday came around and his dad bought it for him. So everybody in the neighborhood knew. It was like 3 days before he actually got it. So the day of his birthday, he got it. Everybody was excited. He was outside. It took about, this is when it took D batteries, the really big batteries. It probably took about 8 D batteries. So thinking back on it, was kind of funny. But anyway, so we're sitting out on the porch playing music and whatnot on the first day. Everybody, all was fine. So maybe 3 days went by, less than a week. Say about 3 days went by. Me and my friend M, we took a walk. It was at night to the local. It was a chicken place. I'll just say a chicken place that was around the corner from my house, and we wanted to go over there and get some chicken. So I remember it was dark, so I'm assuming it was maybe 8, 9, 10-ish, but it was dark. And it was about 3 blocks away. It was like in a circle. We had to go to the chicken place. So we're walking to the chicken place. We get there, We order. I remember going in, and I think I just got like some fries or something, and I put them in a bag, and I put some salt in them, and I shook them up, and we left out. I can't remember what he got, but we left out. You know, I just remember all the attention he was getting from his boombox, and the song we were playing at the time. I remember it was "Cutie Pie." You're the reason why I love you so. If you're old enough, you remember that song. It's still the jam today. Called Cutie Pie. And I remember while we were walking to the chicken place, he was just receiving a lot of attention. You know, people heard the music. It was really loud. It's really, we were really a spectacle that day, I guess. So we get to the restaurant, we order our food, the fries. I put the salt in there, shake the bag up. We leave out the restaurant. Mind you, it's dark. We go the opposite way because we're going to go a complete circle and end up back at his house. So we didn't go the way we came, we went the opposite way. So we head down the street, and we're walking, "Cutie Pie, you're the reason why." So out of nowhere, a guy runs up from our left side. And his boombox, he had a strap on it. He wasn't just carrying it. He had like a strap on it, and he had it around his neck, and he was carrying it like that, playing, I can't remember the band. But anyway, guy came up out of nowhere. He ran up and he grabbed the strap. And at the same time of him grabbing the strap, trying to take the radio off his shoulder, I didn't know that's what he was doing at first because it happened so fast. But he grabbed the radio with both, the strap of the radio with both his hands. And my friend M grabbed the other end of the strap and was pulling back on it. And I remember the guy saying, he was like he had on like this black leather jacket. He had on all black. But I remember him, when he grabbed the radio strap, he said, "Man, take the motherfucker right off your shoulders, bro. That's mine. It's mine. Give it to me. Just give it up." And when my friend M was pulling back, he wouldn't let go. And I can remember him, the look on his face. He was just looking right in the man's face, pulling back on his radio. And I'm 6 or 7 years old. I'm standing back, just looking like shocked. And when my friend M wouldn't give up the radio, that's when the guy reached inside of his jacket, his black leather jacket, and pulled out a gun similar to this one. It was a revolver, just like this. It was all black, but I remember it being shiny. It was all black. And he sort of pulled it from his jacket and brandished it like this. And he still had the radio strap with one hand. And he said, "Man," I said, "give it up, bro." And right when my friend M noticed the gun, I noticed the gun, he let the radio go. And the guy took off running. And we stood there for a minute in shock. Looking at each other. And without saying anything, we both just took off running back in the direction we came towards the house. And, you know, we told everybody what happened. And mind you, he only had the radio for like 3 days, man. And somebody stole it from him. And he pulled out a gun and tried to take it from him. So the next day, I remember we had to talk to the police and we had to go downtown and try to pick the person out in the lineup. And I remember we couldn't identify him because of everybody they showed us. We couldn't recognize the guy. And I don't know how much time went by, but he ultimately, he got his radio back. It was like, I remember it being like really damaged and scratched up. But the point of the story is that is my second experience with a firearm. And needless to say, if you watch the first video was kind of negative, but it was a learning experience. The second one that we're talking about today, it was another negative experience, but it was also a learning experience. The neighborhood we grew in, it was high crime, typical poor neighborhood. I don't have to spell out everything that went on, but it was a typical neighborhood. So the lesson that I learned in that is just be careful of your surroundings. Don't walk around with a boombox. with anything expensive that you don't want anybody to take in a poor neighborhood, because they will take it from you. And this particular time, I'm glad neither one of us were harmed or injured, but the man brandished a gun. It was a black revolver, again, like this one. And I was terrified. And I was traumatized from that. So, it's pretty scary. I'll never forget it. So, that's pretty much it. My second experience with a firearm. Again, just try and be safe if you own firearms, man. You got kids, if you got adults that are ignorant, just try and keep all your firearms locked up, locked away in a safe, but in a safe place, but still accessible if you ever need them. God forbid you do, but if you ever do, don't hesitate. So that's it. My second experience with a firearm. Peace. Blackwood. Peace, YouTube. What's good? I got another story to tell. I remember, I told you all my stories are fact-based. These are personal experiences that I'm just sharing with people that's been supporting my channel. This particular story right here is it's really sad, but it does illuminate gun safety and why we should be safe if we have firearms in our home, around our loved ones, and whatnot. So this story takes place around the same time period. If you watch my first two videos, the first video I shared my very first experience ever with a firearm, ever. The second video I posted, I shared the second experience I had with a firearm, where me and a friend of mine were robbed at gunpoint. Two little kids. That's me right there. This dude right here. So I was about that age. I was about 7 or 8 in this picture. In this particular picture, we were in Kentucky. I had an uncle that used to be the president of Kentucky State University. But I digress. So that video was about a friend of mine and myself robbed at gunpoint for his radio. Check that video out. So this is installment number 3, I would say. So buckle up. Let me get my cigar, get my smoothie. This smoothie is called Sunrise Sunset. Cigar. There we go. So the scene was a summer day. I won't say summer, I'll just say it was warm. I'm assuming it was summer. Mind you, again, I was this big, 7, 8, 6 maybe. So I'm gonna recall this story as best I can from the standpoint of a 7, 8, 6-year-old kid. So we were all outside, man, a bunch of kids from the neighborhood. I stayed in this neighborhood. Everybody in the neighborhood was pretty close-knit. I think I knew in the block I stayed in, I think I knew everybody on both sides of the street. My stepdad in the neighborhood, he was pretty popular, I would say. And the men in the neighborhood, they would all get together and fish, hunt, whatnot. So it was always guns. I was always used to being around guns. But this particular time, this was my third, I would say, indirect and direct experience with the firearm. I only know now how traumatic these stories that I'm sharing with you were and are on me. I only understand now, as a grown man, how traumatic they were. After having kids myself, watching them grow and seeing them at age 6, 7, 8, when I saw them and how young and vulnerable they were, then and only then did I get a picture of how traumatic some of the stuff was that I endured, I encountered in my journey in this life. But my channel is about firearms. I'm into firearms. It's a hobby, but I'm number one on safety, you know. But let me continue. So it was a hot summer day, and again, we were in the front of my stepdad's house. It's a group of us, and I think we were playing with a football, throwing it back and forth on the sidewalk. From time to time, the ball would go out in the street. You know, we would have to go out in the street. We would get yelled at by one of the adults. Something you can't do nowadays is to correct somebody else's child. You could be in a world of trouble doing that nowadays. However, in the day that I'm talking about, it was a community. It was a neighborhood. It wasn't a hood. It was a whole word, neighborhood. So we were all outside playing, and we kept hearing arguing and yelling coming from this particular house right directly across the street from our house. So we didn't think nothing of it because it was like a common thing to hear this particular man, who I loved and respected to this day. He passed away, rest in peace. These are older men. So we heard him over there yelling, heard his voice. He had a real distinct voice, unmistakable in the neighborhood. And everybody knew when he got riled up or got to drinking, you know. Typically nothing happened, but this particular day, we heard him yelling and screaming about something. He and his wife. I won't say their names, but it's a true story. So we were all out there playing, and out of nowhere, we heard what sounded like a firecracker, a really loud firecracker, like pow, really loud. So we all looked around, and simultaneously, it seemed like all the adults that were in the close proximity, it was people over here, people across the street, it was just people out. It was a sunny day. You all heard the parents of the group that I was with say each one of their names and say, y'all come in the house right now. Include my, I believe it was my mom or my stepdad. Somebody told me to come in the house. So we all ended up going in the house, that bright sunny day. And we didn't think nothing of it, you know. We all went in the house and went on about our way. I think I went in the house and probably went to sleep. But when I woke up sometime later, I'm not sure how, I couldn't have slept that long because it was still daylight when I woke up, but it must have been like a cat nap or something. I looked outside and it was ambulance and fire trucks everywhere. And they were at the house across the street that I told you we always heard the yelling and screaming at. A family that I loved, that I still love to this day. They both have passed away since then, but this was in this maybe late 70s, early 80s. So saw all the ambulance and fire trucks out there, police. And I saw them take someone from the home on a stretcher and put them in the ambulance and take them away. And that was that. Later on that day or shortly after, the word might have started right then and there because everybody was in the neighborhood, was out watching and looking. We started hearing that the man had shot his wife, shot her. And mind you, I'm 7, 8 years old. We're like, what? Shot her? My mind wasn't really mature enough to even recollect what had just happened. Only now and in my older years do I really understand what happened. But then I didn't really understand. He shot his wife. I didn't know if it meant she had passed away or what. But fast forward a few months, maybe weeks, months, I would go back and, I would frequently go back and forth at that house because that house was really good friends with our house. My father was really good friends with that man, and my mom was really good friends with the lady. So I was over there frequently, but I remember it was a time where I didn't go over there for a long time. It had probably, I'm assuming it was some months. It wasn't years, but it was months. So when I finally got a chance to go over there, his wife was in a wheelchair. She couldn't walk anymore. I'd never seen her walk again. I always seen her in that wheelchair, and she always had this bag on the side of her wheelchair, and it looked to be like it was something yellow in it. Well, I know now it was a bag when you get shot and you get paralyzed, and you have to empty it. I can't think of the name, but it's some type of bag that you use when you can't use your bladder anymore. But the gunshot had paralyzed her from the waist down, and she never walked again. And as a child, I didn't really understand that. I guess it must have been ruled an accident because I don't ever remember seeing her husband go to jail or do time in jail. However, I heard the adults saying that it was an accident, but nobody believed it. They were just gossiping. They believed he did it on purpose because they were arguing. I don't know what happened. But if it was an accident, it just proves or makes my point of firearm safety. I'm just going on the premise that it was an accident because I heard both sides. He did it on purpose for various reasons. But like I said, he had a reputation for snapping off at anything all the time. So that's part of the reason I'm sure I was hearing that. And another half was saying, it was an accident. He didn't do no time in jail. He went to court or whatever. And it must have been an accident because he didn't do no time in jail. So if it was an accident, please be safe. If you got firearms, if you got these things right here, be safe. Because we don't want any more accidents to occur like that. Thanks for listening. Black Mud. Peace. Peace, YouTube. What's good? Hope everybody all right. I got another story to tell. If you've been following me, I'm not saying I'm all popular and stuff, but I'm saying if you have been following me, if you subscribe to my page, Black Mud, I've been doing this new thing on my channel where I've been telling some true stories, personal stories of firearm experience that I've had in the past. I'm just sharing these stories just to give you some insight on why I'm into guns. I'm a strong advocate for safely having firearms in your home, carrying a firearm to protect yourself. I'm a strong advocate for all of that. Safety first, of course, and legally within the law. So having said that, this is going to be my fourth installment of a story that I recall. The first three that I told, if you check them out on my channel, the first three were the first three I told you it was before I was in the 6th grade. So this story, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. I was about 17 or 18. I was fresh home. Let's just say I was away from my mom for a little while. And I finally came back home, and I was 17 or 18 at the time. And she had a boyfriend. Now, I remember this dude before I went away. I never particularly liked him, but it was a couple times that I thought I liked him because he gave me some money when I was a kid. Now, mind you, I'm 17 or 18 at the time. So this was when I was a kid. These were the memories I had of him. I just remember him and my mom always arguing and shit like that. Anyway, light my cigar so I can think about what I'm saying. Anyway, he would always love, when I finally came home to stay with my mom, you know, actually the gripes that he had with me, you know, looking back on it as an older man now, I was a 17, 18-year-old kid at the time. So looking back on it, all his gripes were legit. He was a man, I was a young man. And looking back on it, all of his gripes were legit. But mind you, this was an undeveloped adolescent mind of mine. And I'm thinking this old MF, you know. But he would always, you know, say stuff like I would always eat up the food. I would contribute into the house. And the way I looked at it, it's my mama house, you know. I ain't gotta do nothing. But, you know, looking back on it, I regret all of that. He was right. He was absolutely right. But I'm 17, 18 years old. So at the time, I'm thinking, like, my mama, I ain't seen my mama in some time. I'm just happy to be here. And so, and he was right. I was eating up all the food. I wasn't washing dishes. I wasn't helping clean up. I wasn't doing none of that stuff. And he would always go off. And the first thing he would do is grab his 38. Mind you, he was an older man. My mom liked older men. Don't ask. He's an older man. And when I seen him, prior to me coming back to school with my mom, he could walk. He was normal. He was older, but he could walk and get around normal. This time when I seen him, he had a stroke or something like that. So he was like paralyzed on one side of his body. He couldn't really walk real good. He walked with a cane, but he could still get around and walk. But he was 40% of the man that I remember. Barely walk. But he would always go off on me, and I would say stuff back, you know, some smart remark, and my mama would sometimes chime in and defend me. He would cuss her out, call her all kind of names. But he would fly off the handle with me when I would say something, and he would love to grab his, again, another 38. It was a 38. It was black, just like this, a flat black. But this is a 357. It was flat black like this, with just like a brown handle. Wasn't nothing special about it, but it was a 38. And I'll tell you how I know it was a 38. So this particular day, he was going off about something. I can't remember what he was going off about. But he would always go off on me and grab his 38 and act like he's gonna shoot me, and my mama would panic out, put your gun away. His name, I'm just gonna say his name, I'm gonna say M. Put your gun away, M. You know, she'd panic out. I would leave the house. Sometimes I would get a kick out of it, just to go to show you how immature I was. But make a long story even a little bit longer. This particular day, he went off on me about something. Can't remember what it was. I'm sure I was in the wrong. He pulled his gun out on me. We went through our thing. My mom made him put his gun away. So I waited. I'm fuming now. Fuming. He pulled his gun out on me again, pointed it at me. I don't think he was gonna actually shoot me looking back on it, but again, I'm a kid. So I waited good till he got his, mind you, so I was thinking, I waited good till he got his cripple ass up. So I was thinking as a young man. I definitely don't think like that now, and this is a story I absolutely regret. Waited till he went in the bathroom. I crept in the room and went in the drawer where he kept that 38 and took it out the drawer. I waited good till he came out of the bathroom, got back in the bed. He got back in the bed. So I busted in the door all of a sudden, and he jumped. Now he's an older man. I'm so glad he not a heart attack, you know. But I busted in the door, boom. But mind you, first I took his pistol and I unloaded it. I took his pistol and I unloaded it. I took all, he had 6 shot. I took all, this is a 5-shot 357, but I took all 6 of his 38 special bullets out, emptied the gun, closed it back, and I waited good till he came out of the bathroom and got comfortable back in the bed. And I kicked in the door, boom! I was like, yeah, motherfucker, what you gonna do now? What was that shit you was talking? He reached for his drawer, he started to say something, he reached for the drawer and didn't see that gun in there. I said, yeah, I got it. The gun is unloaded now, it's unloaded. I pointed the gun in his face, just like this. While he was laying in the bed, his eyes got big like Dizzy Gillespie's jaws used to get big. His eyes got super big. And I had the gun in his face just like that. And I was like, yeah, how the fuck do it feel to have somebody put a gun in your motherfucking face? How that motherfucking shit feel? And just as I was saying all that, my mother was coming up the stairs, running. I could tell she heard the commotion. She came and she saw me pointing the gun at me. She like panicked. She instantly grabbed my arm, dragged me away. And I was like, nah, man, it ain't loaded, it ain't loaded. She pulled me back to the room. I gave her the gun back, but I didn't give her the bullets. So I went back in there. She went back in the room to calm him down, gave him his gun back, I'm assuming. I stayed in my room. Somewhere along that time she gave him the gun back, he realized that the bullets weren't in there. So when he finally calmed down, I think it was the next day, when he finally calmed down, we woke up the next day, I remember going in there and giving my mom 1 bullet. I gave him 1 bullet for his gun, and I took the rest of them. I kept them, and I don't even know what even happened to it, but I never gave them back. I'm sure he had more, but I never gave those 6 back, those 5 back. I gave him 1 back. And needless to say, that experience with him and I, we never had a problem again after that. So, thanks for listening. That's it. That's that. Black Mud. Peace. What's good, YouTube? Hope everybody in good spirits. Cheers. A little apple juice. Whew. Strong apple juice. I got another story to tell. I think this is part 5. This story, if you remember part 1 through 4, all of these stories, with the exception of 4, took place around, part 4 took place around 17, 16 years old. But part 1, part 2, and part 3, it was all before the 6th grade. So I was probably 6, 7, or 8 years old. However, I'm gonna fast forward in part 5 to the year 1990. This particular year was the year I was supposed to graduate high school. So this happened to me on a Monday. This story is about me getting caught with a concealed weapon without a permit in a school, high school. This happened to me on a Monday. This particular Monday, all the seniors in the high school were just waiting to graduate. Everybody was scheduled to graduate that Saturday. So I'm talking about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday was graduation. That last week of school was just, we were just going through the motions to get through the week. Everybody knew who was going to graduate and everybody knew who wasn't graduating. So graduation was scheduled for Saturday. This was Monday morning. I get to school a week before graduation, 1 week. So the night prior, some friends and I had an altercation with a group of individuals. Little kid, senseless, stupid. But the situation was such that I didn't go home that night. And I end up staying over a friend's house. And ironically, I wore the same clothes. And during the altercation, it got to the point where guns were drawn. And I had an illegal gun. One of these. Because I couldn't go home and put it away, I ended up taking it to school with me the next day because, like I said, I stayed over a friend's house, female friend. And that morning I went to school. It was a Sunday night. I went to school that Monday morning, same clothes. I was only able to brush my teeth, wash my face, stuff like that, but on the same clothes. But unfortunately, I also had that pistol with me. I didn't leave it at her house. I'm sure it was her parents' house. I was young. I didn't leave it at her parents' house. So I went to school. I took it to school. First class of the day was appliance repair. It was a 3-hour block. So it was a class that taught us a trade about appliances, how to fix washers, dryers, microwaves, dishwashers, etc., etc. So it was actually a good class. I still use the information I learned in that class today. I never took it serious as a profession, but I still use the information. But make a long story just a little bit longer. So I had this little black bag that I carried a pistol in. It was just a little black bag about this big. And I carried the pistol in. It was a revolver, a .32 revolver, fully loaded. And I brought it to school with me. And that Monday, we were taking our final exam, which consisted of the teacher had a washer or a dryer that he had, did something to, that we had to find the problem and fix it within a certain time limit. That was part of the exam. So I was in the process of doing that. And I set the bag down next to me with the pistol. And I didn't think none of that. I was just so careless with a loaded gun. It was a revolver, but just when I was a child, I thought as a child. I acted like a child. I did childish things. But I'm so glad I became a man because I put away childish things. But anyway, I set the bag down, and during my little examination, I was trying to solve the problem on this appliance. One of the students in the class that I didn't notice at the time picked the bag up. And the teacher of the class happened to be standing over everybody's shoulder watching. So while he picked the bag up, the teacher was standing over his shoulder watching him. So he unzipped the bag, opened it up, and all I heard was the zipper. I didn't think none of it. And I heard the next voice I heard was the teacher say, "My name. And is that a loaded gun?" So I stopped and turned around and looked. And I can't even remember what I said, but I think I said something to the effect like, yeah, like it was nothing. This little kid in high school with a loaded gun, teacher. And so after I said yeah or something to that point, yes or something, I instantly stopped taking the exam And the teacher pulled me to the side. He took the bag, and now by this time I'm getting nervous now. He pulled me into the office. He said, he asked me some questions like, what are you doing with a loaded gun in school? And I can't even remember because it was so long ago. Remember, this is 1990, probably around June, the month of June of 1990. So he asked me what an adult would ask a teenager with a loaded gun in school. Now, at this time, this was like a rare thing, especially in the city that I'm from. This was like rare. This was like one of the first in the city that I could recall. So I had never heard anything like this before from any other school. So I got caught in school with a loaded gun. So after he took the gun from me, he walked away, walked out into the hallway somewhere, and he came back. And I don't know, he must have made me believe that he wasn't going to tell anybody, that he was just going to let me finish out the day. He wasn't going to say anything. He was going to keep the gun. And I was foolish enough to believe that. Now, mind you, this is a high school teacher with a kid in his class that got caught with a loaded gun. I was so stupid enough to believe that he was going to allow me to continue with the day. But ironically, I got called to the dean's office and the police were there. I also had a pager on me. When this is before cell phones and when everybody had pagers. And you only had a pager during this time, especially me being in high school. You're doing one or two things. You're fronting it because you stole it from somebody and it really doesn't work, or it works and you're using it. I'll let you figure that part out. So I got caught with a pager and a loaded 32 revolver in high school. And I remember when the police led me off to jail. They took me out this door and I can see all the students hanging out the windows looking and watching. Some people saying, something, I don't remember, but something to the effect to keep your head up or something like that, something. And I just remember feeling like the biggest gangster. And I'm not a gangster or nothing like that. And I just remember feeling so cool, so hip, so gangster. Everybody watching me like, yeah, I'm about to go to jail. You think about that. Yeah, I'm about to go to jail. I got handcuffs on. I ain't even got out of high school yet. So ironically, that's my felony I have on my record. I had to go through the whole process of getting it expunged. And so now I'm a legal gun owner and whatnot. But that was my first experience, and really only experience with prison. After the trial and everything, I ended up getting sentenced to 18 months to 3 years in prison. So this goes out to anybody. If you want to ruin your life or start your life out in the red and have to work your way to the green, you do the stupid shit that I did. I just thank God I didn't use the gun to hurt anybody. So it was a blessing in disguise that I actually got caught with it, because my intentions was to use it. I was in fear that somebody was going to actually come up to the school that next day. That's how intense the altercation we had was. But thank God I didn't use it. Me going to jail, me getting caught with that gun was a blessing in disguise. So thanks for listening. If this helps somebody, I hope it helps somebody, I should say. But please don't make that mistake. Gun safety is real. And now, with the epidemic of gun violence, this was 1990, unheard of. I just got caught with it. I didn't plan on doing anything with it except defending myself with some other kids that we had gotten into it with. But it was a blessing in disguise. But I worked my way out of it, got my shit expunged. A legal citizen now. My one and only time going to jail. I'm not proud of that. I am not a gangster. I'm not glorifying that. But I was there. I got a number. I could quote it right now. I don't know why I remember it, but I'm not going to quote it. But true story. Thanks for listening. Back mud. Peace, YouTube. I got another story to share. Another life experience that I had with a firearm. Another irresponsible experience in my young years. This is part 6, I believe, maybe 7. I believe it's part 6 though. Part 6 was about when I got caught in school with a gun. So actually, I jumped ahead. I tried to keep everything, my first gun experiences, in chronological order, but I realized that part 5 was, it's either part 5 or part 6 was my last part. I can't, check them out. I got a playlist, storytelling, at Black Mud. But this is either 5 or 6, but the last one I told was about the time I got caught in school with a gun as a teenager, and I ended up doing jail time. So that was the last time. This story that I'm telling you today was actually before that. Same weapon involved, but this was right before I actually got caught with the weapon in school. So here we go. Again, this is not a happy story. And some aspects, from a personal standpoint, it was a blessing in disguise almost. But at the time, it seemed like a 100% curse. Now, this is the time I almost unalived my best friend. He's my best friend today. Still one of my best friends to this very day. We play video games at night on PS5, and we play all the time. So this is probably 35 years ago, probably around 1990, somewhere around there. So this took place, I can't remember exactly what his and I issue was through high school, but we were best friends. We hung out, went to parties, and I'm assuming, because it was so long ago, and if you see the gray hair, so I remember the gist of the story. Just some of the details may be scattered to me. If I was to talk to him, he probably could fill in some of the gaps. But all I remember is we probably had some kiddie beef, some teenage boy beef over. It wasn't money, because I was in the street and he wasn't. So it had to be maybe over some girl in school. I can't remember quite. We lived right across the street from each other, so it wasn't anything serious. But I used to drink heavy early in my life. Another bad choice. But to make a long story a little bit longer, it was a New Year's Eve party at a mutual friend's house, and everybody in the neighborhood was going. And we were in school that day. Everybody's talking about it, and the time came where it was time to go to the party. So maybe 2 hours before the party, me and a couple other friends were riding around, hanging out other places, drinking. And I can remember being, I don't even want to say buzzed. I want to say I wasn't driving. Somebody else was driving, but I can clearly remember being intoxicated when I got there. And it was already dark. It was probably maybe an hour or so before New Year's Eve. You know, you want to get to the party before you do the countdown. And the same gun that I got caught with in high school, I used to carry it all the time because my young life was full of bad choices. So I got caught with a gun similar to this one. Unloaded, similar to this one, but this is a 9mm Luger right here. the gun I got caught with and the gun that I ultimately almost unalived my friend with was a 32. A lot smaller than this, but it was a revolver, yet and still. So I get to the party, and we sit out in the car for a second. I don't even think I was smoking weed or anything like that. That's pretty much what we did as kids. Drank some alcohol, beer, and every once in a while somebody might have some weed or a joint or something like that. But we weren't really into that. I wasn't. Some of my friends was. I was an athlete. So we get to the party, we sit outside, and I can remember us sitting outside for a second in the car while they smoke a joint or something. There was a bunch of people hanging outside. I could tell there was a bunch of people in the house. So we hung out outside for about 10 minutes. And I hadn't even thought about my friend that whatever, still don't remember quite what the beef was over. I'm assuming it was over a female or some he said, she said crap. But I remember as soon as we got in there, as soon as we walked up the steps and we walked in the front door, I saw my best friend right there. As soon as I walk in. And I remember being highly intoxicated on that oil, as we call it. And as soon as I seen him, I remember having this really long, it was a triple fat goose with fur around the collar. And it was like all the way down to my ankles, a really long, bright red. I can't stand red today. I think it has something to do with Chicago Bulls or something like that. But today I can't stand the color red. But it was a triple goose, full length goose down coat with the fur around the collar. And I remember when I seen him, some words was exchanged, some eye contact. I don't quite remember what was said or how it was exchanged. But I remember us walking straight towards each other like this. And I remember going inside of my long triple fat goose just like this and pulling out the 32 and pointing it straight at him. I don't mean to point it at the camera, but pointing straight at him like this. And just as I did that, another friend, he had just came home from the army. He must have been watching the whole thing unfold from the corner or something, because just as I pulled that 32 out, and in my drunk, immature teenage mind, I intend on shooting him. I don't even know why. That's the scary thing. Thank God I did not pull that trigger, or my life would be totally different if that would have happened. That would have been devastating. He's my best friend. And we talked about it a few times over the years, and I don't really think he understands what was in my immature mind at that time. But I tried to explain it as best I could, but I also thank God that it didn't happen. But anyway, my friend, who was home from the army, he jumped right in the middle, and I could feel somehow he got his hand in between, he got his finger in between my finger and pulling this trigger right here. And he stopped me from pulling the trigger. At the same time, he grabbed my wrist and had it in the air with his finger in between the trigger, and he pushed me against the wall, and he kept saying, "No, old man, no." He used to call me O. "Oh, no, old man, no, please, no. No," or something to that effect. "Don't do this, not here," and "No, why you doing this?" And "Let the gun go, man, let the gun go." And I remember taking my finger off the trigger, and as he was talking to me, he was right in my face. He's a real big, cock-strong dude, dark skin, he was a gentle giant, but he wasn't that gentle that day. But I ended up letting the gun go. He got it out of my hands, and I remember them dragging me in the basement of the house or in the backyard or somewhere, talking to me, calming me down. And matter of fact, it was the backyard. I walked around to the front of the house. Mind you, I'm in totally intoxicated, blacked out damn near. But I remember I walk around, or they walk me around, and I get in the car we pulled up in, and I remember just passing out, waking up on my way home, puking in the back seat of this car. My friends get me out of the car, walk me to the house, and this is no bullshit. Like in the movies, they bammed on my door. I stayed with my mom and leaned me up against the door, and when my mom opened the door, I fell in. Bam! And I'm assuming, because I'm kind of tall, and just between the door and the stairs, there's no way she could have got the door closed. But I remember waking up that morning, crunched up between the door and the stairs, because we stayed in the duplex and you had to go upstairs. So you open the door and the landing is right there. Then you got the store and stairs. So I was balled up with my 6'2" behind, balled up. And I remember waking up, whole body aching, smelling puke, laying in puke. It was a horrible experience in more ways than you can imagine. But I'm so glad that what my immature intentions was to, I'm just so glad it didn't play out like it could have. I thank God for my friend who's passed away now. May God rest his soul. But he saved my life. Thanks for listening. Peace, YouTube. Hope everybody good. I got another story to tell. This is part 7. If you remember, I have 1 through 6 on my channel, Black Mud. Check them out. I'm just lying out from as far back as I can remember some of my negative experiences with firearms before I became a responsible firearm owner like I am now. So this is part 7 of my little storytelling series, you can call it. I got a story to tell, and I'm just going to show you this. This is the story of this right here. I hope you can see that. This newspaper article is 30 years old. It's 1990. So when this incident happened. Actually 1992. I apologize. 1992. If you remember part 6, it was a story of how I went straight to prison, not jail, prison from high school. So check that story out. So this is after that. I came home, I did my time. Because I went to jail, I couldn't graduate on time, so I had to graduate 2 years late. So this was 2 years later, 1992. Maybe a little less than 2 years actually. But this was about 2 years later. So I came home. I had to go to this alternative school to get my diploma. So I'd done all that, and I decided that I wanted to go to the Navy. So I went through the whole process, and I had a leave date. And this is the story of when I got shot. And 2 of my very close friends were unalived. So buckle up, here we go. So before we start, I'm gonna light up my backwood cigar. Take a sip of my Kool-Aid. Here we go. So like I said, this story takes place around 1992. Not around 1992, 1992. The summer, I think it was August. I was all set to leave for the Navy. I had a leave date scheduled for that Monday. This was Friday, the prior Friday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I was out of here. I was supposed to be stationed in San Diego. I was taking my basic training in Illinois. It's called, I forgot the name of it, but if any Navy people watching this, you know what the basic training facility is called up in Illinois for the Navy. That's where I was supposed to take my basic training. Then I was supposed to be stationed in San Diego. If any more Navy people out there, I'm pretty sure you know the ship that I was going to be stationed on in San Diego after my basic training. So like I said, this was Friday. I was leaving that Monday. So earlier that day before it happened, Friday, I think my friends, they had a family-owned business, and they were working. My two friends were working. Two of my friends that were with me. So, but everybody knew that I was leaving to go to the Navy Monday. And you know, the two or 3 days prior to me leaving or supposed to leave, everybody was expressing, you know, how they missed me, and they had all the indifferent reasonings why I shouldn't go. Anyway, I decided to go, not necessarily because I was just so patriotic, you know, not to say I'm not patriotic, but I went just to change the scenery. I've been so many things I could tell you, but life up to until this point had been kind of rough, to say the least. So everybody was, we had planned to go out to some little nightclub here locally where I stay at. And I don't know what happened. We all got dressed during the day after everybody got off, but we all decided after it was all said and done that we were just going to end up over another mutual friend's house and have some drinks, play some cards, you know, maybe some ladies come over, listen to some music, something like that. So that's what we did. So we probably got over there about maybe 8 or 9. It was in the summer, so it was still light outside. So it was maybe like towards the evening that we got over there. We started drinking, playing cards, just like spades. No gambling or nothing like that. We were just playing spades. We might have even played some bid whist or something like that, but we definitely played spades. So while we were there, it was upstairs. We noticed my homeboy, who I rode over there with, his car alarm kept going off. So this happened maybe 3 times. The first time, you know, we got up, looked downstairs. He hit his chirper to turn it off. Didn't see anything. So it happened again. Somewhere shortly after that, the alarm went off again. And this was kind of rare because this alarm never went off like that. But we still really didn't think nothing of it. It went off. We looked outside. You could literally look out of the window and look straight down and see his car down there. So we didn't really think nothing of it. So after about the 3rd or 4th time of his alarm going off, by this time hours had gone by. It was probably 11:30, 12. It was basically Saturday morning. So we had been there some hours and had a couple drinks, you know. So after the last time the alarm went off, we decided to just leave because it was late and everybody had different situations they had to deal with in the morning. So we all decided to leave. So as we were going downstairs, you know, he stayed in this big ass apartment building. So we were going downstairs to the front door, and we got to the front door. It was dark by this time, and I told you it's probably Saturday morning by this time. It was probably 12, 11, I say between 11 and 1 o'clock in the morning. So after we get out of the building, we stand in front of the front door for a second and shoot the shit. And it was 1, 2, 3, 4. It was actually 6 of us. The guy who stayed there, another one of my friends who drove in a different car, and the 4 guys that I came with. We all came in the same car. So it was actually 6 of us. So we shot the shit for a second. My friend that rode in a separate car, he went off in another direction towards his car. Our car was right in front of the building. So my friend Kay, he went back in the house, and we started walking towards the car. So it was 4 of us. So 2 of us went to the side, to the driver's side doors, which was facing the street. And the other 2 stood on the sidewalk by the passenger side doors. Now, my friend whose car this was, he always had an issue. It was an old, I think it was a 78 box Chevy, real clean, music, rims, the whole 9. But he would have to jiggle his driver's side door and stick his key and jiggle it and turn it at the same time to open it. Never would get it fixed. I don't understand, but anyway. So while he's jiggling the lock, we both noticed a guy pop up from in front of his car like he was laying down or something, or ducked down, and he had a gun in his hand, just like this. He rose up, he had a hood on, and as he rose up, his hood fell off, and he had a gun. His was loaded, but this one is unloaded, and he was pointing it right at us, back and forth, passenger side, driver's side, passenger side, driver's side. And my friends on the passenger side had their hands up. We obviously on the driver's side, we noticed him late, because by the time we noticed him, they already had their hands up. And my friend who was driving, he, we both threw our hands up at the same, all of us, when we noticed their hands up, we noticed the gun, we simultaneously threw our hands up. And my friend said, "Hey man, don't we know you?" after his hood came off. And the guy responded, and I did recognize him when his hood came off. I recognized him immediately. We weren't friends, but we weren't enemies either. I just knew of him. We went to the same high school. Anyway, we had mutual friends, but like I said, we weren't enemies, but we weren't friends either. So after we had our hands up, my friend asked him, did he know us? He's like, yeah, y'all know me. He said, now get on the ground face down and empty your pockets. And so my friends on the passenger side, they turned around and laid in the grass, face down, and my friend and myself, we looked at each other, and I could have swore it was like telepathy. We both were thinking the same thing: run. So I immediately took off running, and I thought my friend was right behind me, but I got so far and I turned around and looked, and I saw him getting led around the car with the gun still on him. The guy was leading him around the car with the gun on. By this time, I'm probably maybe a little bit less than half a block away, because I darted. I took off running. I expected to get shot in the back. I really did. But fortunately, I didn't. So I got to the main section of the street where we were at. Ironically, it was exactly where my friend who left prior to us was parked at. So I could see him still trying to get out of the parking spot, because 2 cars were really close to him. And he also had a box Chevy, 78, 79 Impala. So he was still struggling, trying to get out, as I took off running towards where he was. And as I got to where he was, it was a main street and it was traffic. So I had to weave through the traffic. And by the time that I got to the other side of the street and took off that way, I looked over at across back to where I ran from, and I saw the guy that had my friends. Now, mind you, this was probably maybe half a block away. So I'm looking and it's dark. I could see him shooting down towards the ground, shooting down. And right when I thought that, I got shot. Pow, right in the leg, in the thigh right here. And as I was running past my friend's car who was still trying to get out, and I sort of gestured to him to just keep going. And I ran. I kept running. Blood is just pouring down my leg, and I'm running. I remember I was about to cut through an alley, and I remember instinctively thinking like, no, don't go that way, because if somebody's chasing you, they'll corner you in this alley. Stay on the main road. So I stayed on the main road, took off running, got to the store that we all frequently went to, and all the owners knew us. It was an Arab store. Arab owners, they knew us. So I got in the store. But before I got in the store, I made it to the parking lot. If you knew how far I ran with a bullet hole in my leg, it was amazing. But I got to the parking lot in the store, and I seen another guy that I knew. Now, I'm bleeding. The blood is pouring down now. And right when I stopped is when I started feeling the pain. I didn't feel any pain the whole time I was running. But right when I stopped is when I started feeling the pain. And I saw another guy that I went to high school with, because this was a mutual neighborhood. I live in a small city, so it's hard not to know everybody, especially if you went to high school with them. So as I approached the guy in the parking lot with my leg, blood running down my leg, I said, man, just I can remember it like yesterday. I tried to be as calm as I could. I said, man, I need your help right now. He was like, what's up, man? What's going on? I said, I just got shot. And he looked down. He was like, for real? And he saw the blood, and it's like he went in shock. And he just stood there staring. So I limped into the store. And I saw the guy that I always say, the owner of the store. And as I'm trying to tell him I got shot, can he call my mom or call 911? I can't remember who I told him to call. He noticed at the same time that I was bleeding, and it was bad. It was in the store, and it was people in the store, and somebody else in the store. Matter of fact, it was the guy's brother who I just asked for help outside. I saw him in the store. Ironically, he passed away too, not from a gunshot, but rest in peace to that brother. But I saw him in the store, and he was like, what's up, man? What you want me to do? I said, man, just call somebody, call somebody. And I remember walking behind the counter of the store. Mind you, I think I'm 22 years old. I walked behind the counter of the store, walked up into this little place where they had the safe, and I seen all this money laying out like he was in there counting money, and I just fucking passed out. I remember seeing blood everywhere, and I remember passing out, coming through, passing out, and somehow in between me coming unconscious and out of conscious and unconscious, I managed to have him call my mom. So I can remember telling him, hearing him speaking to my mom, and it was just a panicked out situation. I started hearing the sirens come, and I blacked out again. The next time I woke up, I was getting put inside of the EMS or the ambulance, and I remember asking the lady, was I going to die? She said no. And the next thought, just ignorance, the next thought I remember, I had just bought these new Fila shoes. This is when Fila first hit the scene and everybody was rocking Fila. So I had these pretty black, it's like they were white, and it's like they had something shiny over the shoe, and it had a really thick bottom, black, with the black Fila sign down the side of the shoe. I had these black, all this stuff was brand new. I spent a grip on it, I think that same day, because we were supposed to hang out. I had these black shorts, they were the shit at the time, thinking back on it, they were kind of corny. It was these like these jean shorts, and they had like suede on the legs right here. They were shorts with suede on the legs. Thinking back on it, I bet you my thighs was sweating like a motherfucker. But anyway, it was that outfit I had on. I had the black and white Fila shirt to match on. So had my little jewelry on. But I remember thinking, I digress for a second, but I remember thinking that, damn, I got blood on my shoes and blood on my new shorts. And I got a bullet hole in me. And the news that I was about to receive when I got to the hospital, man. So the ride to the hospital, I don't even remember the ride to the hospital, but I do remember going in, and the next time I became conscious, they were cutting my brand new shorts off of me. My shirt was already off. And the first thing they did, because they thought I got shot in my private parts, and the first thing she did was she grabbed and she stuck a catheter down in there. Ooh. If you ever had a catheter in your manhood, you know what I'm talking about. But she stuck that motherfucker down in there, and she pushed that down all the way down in there. I could feel it, and I lost consciousness again. The next time I woke up, I was in a room, and my mom was here. The girl I was dating at the time was in there. It was a detective, black detective, in there with a white partner. And the first thing I remember asking him was everybody all right? And he said, no. And it was like a weird silence. I didn't know what else to ask or say. I said, did anybody die, man? Just like I just said it. And he was like, yeah, 2 of them. Man. Whew. When I say that shit knocked sparks out of me, man. Rest in peace, homies. But I survived. And my friend, they all, after it was all said and done, I talked to a friend, the friend that was with me, the one who was on the side of the car with me. I asked him what happened and what was said. He said, after he went around the car and laid on the ground, one of the guys was his brother. The other guy was his cousin. He said when he shot his brother first, and he saw his brother's ear fly off, and when he shot his brother in the back of the head, execution style, and he saw his ear fly off, and he saw his brother's hands grip the grass and never let the grass go. He skipped over, he said, this is his words, because I wasn't there. He said he skipped over him and then shot his cousin in the back of the head. And then he said, this is according to what my friend told me because he survived. He said, damn, I shot them, I might as well shoot you too then. Boom! Shot him in the back of the head. And he said he remembered everything going black. Fortunately, he survived. The bullet went in here and came out of his throat right here. He's deaf in that ear, but if you didn't grow up with him like I did, you wouldn't even know. He's got like a little slur. He talks a little slow now, but you wouldn't even know it. But he survived, and I survived. And I can't help but think that that was karma. Thanks for listening. Peace. Peace, YouTube. What's going on? I got another story to tell. Really, it's an extension to part 7. So you can say this is part 8, or you can say this is part 7A. But on my channel, Black Mud, and on the playlist, I'm going to label it as part 8. But it's really an extension of part 7. So here we go. So, if you know part 7, my storytelling was about when I got shot and two of my really close friends, when I was a lot younger, lost their lives. It's 30 years ago. But when I say just because it was 3 decades ago, it still doesn't deeply, profoundly affect me and how I move, how I think, how I associate with people, relationships, with people. From that point on, was dramatically different. But after the funeral, I had to go to 2 funerals. The third friend of mine, who was also shot in the back of the head, execution style, that survived. We sort of had issues. Not direct issues, but indirect issues. People talking, running their mouths. Because it was here where I live at, it was really a big deal at the time when it happened. A big deal. 3 people shot in the back of the head, execution style. It was a big deal. But after the funeral, there was a lot of gossip going around, and it sort of separated him and I. We were the only 2 survivors. I got shot in the leg, he got shot in the head. So he left the city, I assume, or he went into hiding, because there was a lot of talk about retaliation, finishing the job, all this gangster. We weren't gangsters, we were just kids. We were just kids, man. We weren't into none of that crap. Matter of fact, all of it was random. But if you listen to some of the stories that were circulating around it, I mean, oh my God. But it sort of put distance between him and I, all the gossip. So I didn't really get a chance to see him or talk to him. I think we might have had a nod as his family was whisking him through the funeral, for the lack of better words. But after the funerals, there was an issue. The issue was the young man that took the lives of my 2 friends and severely injured my other friend. He was not the one that even shot me. When I took off running, I got shot somewhere else by someone else who I never saw. To this day, I don't know. who that person is, but I know he knows who I am. So if you really want to get to just like the bottom line of why I'm such a big protect yourself gun ownership advocate, because it's a guy out there right now. I don't know what he's thinking. I know what I'm thinking. I'm over it. I'm still here. I'm not looking for you. I have no issue with you. However, I'll just say, I hope you don't have an issue with me. Thank God I'm still here. So if you really want to know why I'm such a big gun advocate, that's one of the reasons. I feel like I have to protect myself everywhere I go. I've literally gone to churches, other funerals, years later, with a gun on my hip, inside of a church. God knows, with no intentions on using it. But because of the trauma, I feel like I have to raise the chances of me protecting myself to the highest level anywhere I go. So that happening to me at that age, it was a blessing and a curse. And I hope you understand the two parallels that I just made. Yeah, so the guy's still out there. I never seen him. I've heard names, seen pictures over the years. But like I said, man, I got kids, I got grandkids, I got people that I really care about, and I got people that I assume really care about me. Man, you shot me, bro. And I don't even know why. And I really don't give a fuck why. But hopefully, this story that I'm telling will help somebody else make better decisions. Because I believe, even though I don't know the man that shot me, I knew the man that shot my friends. I believe the lifestyle that I led prior to that. Because if you remember the story, I was supposed to go to the Navy. I was trying to make a complete 360 with my life when this happened. So this happened on a Friday night, early Saturday morning. I was supposed to leave to go to the Navy that Monday. So we were like celebrating because everybody knew I was about to leave. So I was trying to change my life. I had been to jail straight out of high school and a whole bunch of other stuff in between. I had completed a couple years of probation. So I was just trying to do something different when this happened to me. So, man, I was saying that for a reason, but let's just suffice it to say, protect yourself at all times. At all times. I don't like feeling like I need a form of protection everywhere I go. But I feel like I do, with the hopes that I never, ever have to use it. But what the scary part is for me is I know I will, because of what happened to me when I was young. And the reason why I was saying that is because I know the life prior to that I led. I never shot anybody, took anybody's life. But I know I wasn't the nicest neighbor. You know, much of it is because of my upbringing, but I just know part of what happened to me was karma, and it pays to be nice and respect everybody, because you never know who you might need. You never know who you might come across that you might need. And if you got a history of dogging them out or dogging people out, who's to say that person when you really need them? Because time time puts us in a place where we never thought we'd be. So just respect all people. So when karma do come back around, she's sweet to you. Peace, Black Mud. What up, YouTube? I got a story to tell. Decided to do this one live, um, just to be different. Check out my channel, Black Mud. I got a series where I do storytelling. I think I got 1 through 6, and this will be 7. I'm gonna hold on a second before I actually get started. Not really waiting for a whole bunch of people to come. Not like I'm popular or nothing, but if somebody come, I'm just gonna wait a few seconds. And storytelling part 6 at Black Mud. Like, share, subscribe, or not. All my content is firearm related. So legal firearm related. So I'm gonna wait a few minutes before I get started. Storytelling part 7, I think. It's my nephew, D.D. Porter, playing in the background. Rest in peace, D.D. Victim of senseless gun violence. D.D. Porter. Oh, I got it. Storytelling part 6. See the title. Firearms are a false sense of security. So like I said, this is part 7, I believe, of my storytelling series. Um, this one takes place actually kind of recent. This was around 2000, maybe 14, 15, somewhere around there. I had just moved to this new location here in the city I stayed in. And I'm generally not a friendly person, especially if I don't know you. Well, I'm very friendly, but the outward appearance will make you think I'm not friendly. And that's how I like it. Um, but generally speaking, I'm not real outwardly friendly to people that I don't know or people I just met. I'm not necessarily mean, but I'm not friendly either. It's right in the middle until you earn something else. That's how I look at it. But this particular story, I had just moved into this new neighborhood. It was like if you can just picture this, it was like a small street, almost like a cul-de-sac. Um, the street was 1 block long, and it had maybe 4 houses on each side. So it's probably about 8 houses total on the street. Mind you, this is a completely different neighborhood. I had just recently moved over. I didn't really know anybody. I knew the neighborhood because I actually grew up close to being over there, over in that neighborhood. I grew up close to there. But that particular street always had a reputation of like a no-fly zone, so to speak. So I never thought in 1,000 years I'd actually live over there. I won't even name the street because here where I live at, I'm sure the people know the street where I live at, so I won't name the street, but I'll just tell the story. So I just moved over there, me and my lady. And one day I was leaving the hospital. I had to have a physical for a job or something. I had some blood work drawn, took a physical exam. I think I took a drug screening, all that stuff. So I was completing that. I came out, got in my car, drove home. Mind you, this is the new neighborhood that I just moved in. And this is around 2014, 2015. Keep in mind the title of the description of the video is Guns Are a False Sense of Security. You better put your trust in something else other than weapons, because all of them are false sense of security. And here's my example why. One of my examples why. So I left the doctor. I left the outpatient place where I had to take the physical for this new job that I started a few years ago. And so I come home, and maybe I had been staying in this neighborhood for maybe a couple months at this time. So I wasn't necessarily friendly with the neighbors, but I became cordial with the neighbor directly across the street from me because he had family members that I would see that would come over his house from time to time that I knew. So we sort of started a bond because we knew mutual people. So I would speak to him whenever I would, come back from somewhere, whenever I would come on the block. So I sort of would speak to him whenever I would see them on the porch. This particular day, I was kind of annoyed. I had some blood work. I think I just got poked. I hate needles. So I was kind of annoyed. I was already working one job. I think I had just gotten off. It was third shift, so I hadn't had any sleep. I had to have this blood work done first thing in the morning. I got off at 7. I think the appointment was at 8. So I had to be at this place at 8 o'clock. I've been up all night, so I'm annoyed and I'm strapped because I keep one of these on me. I'm strapped now. I'm strapped. So I go to the doctor. I come home, and when I ride around with a semi-automatic, I always keep one loaded in the head on safety. When I carry my Glock, obviously it's no safety, but my everyday carry, my Taurus, I keep one in the head. I have it on safety. So just to give myself an extra sense of security, which, like I said, guns are a false sense of security. And I found this out on this day. Um, so I get out of the car, pull up in front of my house, and I remember seeing my neighbor across the street, who I would speak to from time to time, sitting on the porch, but he didn't really, he was doing something. He was kind of occupied. He wasn't looking up. So I didn't go out of my way to say, "What's up, man?" It was a couple other people sitting on the porch. So I go to walk in, I get out of my car, I walk around, walk to the sidewalk. I had about 5 steps I had to go up, and I'm on the top of my porch. I had a bar screen door, so I had to unlock the gate to get in the screen door, and I had to unlock the actual deadbolt on the door. So I say roughly that took about, to do all that, the whole process, me getting out of the car, walking to the front door, unlocking both locks, that whole process probably took between 30 seconds and a minute, between 30 and 60 seconds. So I went through that whole process. I never stopped. I never turned around to speak. I walked straight in the house. I turned around, I closed the door. And the moment I closed the door, I heard just a bunch of explosions. Boom, 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 boom. Pow, 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 pow. Glass started breaking and shit. My front window glass started breaking. The side of the house glass in the windows, the glass started breaking in the windows. And I immediately dove on the floor. And grabbed my pistol off my hip, and aimed it at the front door. And I say all the it sounded like fireworks, but it was just constant pow 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 pow. So this lasted maybe 25, 30 seconds maybe, and then silence. And slowly I started to hear people outside my door screaming, crying, yelling, call 911, and just making comments of that nature like that. Come to find out, after the smoke cleared, no pun intended, mind you, I'm still laying on the ground. I got my 40 caliber because I carried a 40 caliber, sort of like this, sort of like this Glock right here, which is unloaded, sort of like this Glock 40 right here. But it wasn't a Glock. I think it was an M&P. But for years, I carried a 40 caliber as my everyday carry. But now I recently switched to a 9. That's a whole different story. But I'm sure it was my M&P 40 caliber, loaded on safety. So after the smoke cleared, I opened the front door and looked out, and it was fucking chaos in the front yard. Cars were shot up. My car was shot up. People were laying in the street. Um, I heard yelling and screaming, and I immediately started hearing sirens. Um, Apparently, somebody had came on the block. Mind you, I told you there's only maybe eight houses on this block. Really short block, almost like a cul-de-sac, but it wasn't a cul-de-sac. It's just a really short block. And somebody came over there and shot the whole block up. And they used my porch as their I guess you would call it their point of reference when they started shooting. They used my banister, and all the shells were on my front porch and right next to my stairs, which tells me that if I would have stood out there another 5 seconds and chopped it up or said something to the neighbor across the street, I was right in the line of fire, which means I would have got shot the fuck up. And I was strapped. I had no idea. This is probably 2, 3. This is at this time. It was probably about maybe 1 in the afternoon because I had been up for a long time. It had been maybe 1 in the afternoon when I got home. So it was like bright, sunny, maybe not even that late, maybe about 11, 12. But the sun was out, blue skies, total quietness. And when I walked in that house, it sounded like Vietnam outside my front door. So when I looked out, all hell had broken loose. Uh, I think 2 or 3 people had gotten shot. Nobody was killed, but the whole neighborhood, that whole little area was shot the fuck up. My front door, the window was blown up. The front window of my house, side windows. It must have been like 2 or 3 of them. They all came from different directions through the alleys from where I live at, and they were all shooting. And if I'd have stood out on my porch for a few more seconds, I would have got shot up, dead. Because it was literally like right here on the side of me, and my front door was right here. So if I would have just stood out there and spoke another 5 seconds, I would have been dead. And I had a gun. On that day, my 40 caliber M&P would have did me no good. You understand? I had no idea, and I call myself being aware, trying to be aware, knowing my surroundings, everywhere I'm at. But that day, I guess you could say I was slipping because my firearm wouldn't have saved me. I wouldn't even have time to draw it. So don't put so much trust in all these weapons and firearms you have. You know, you got to find something else to put trust in. If you're religious, put trust in whatever entity you believe in. If you're not religious, you better put some strong trust in yourself and what you can do. You know, put some trust in this, put some security in this, in how you use your mind, the way you think, you know, your intuition, you know, learn how to read between the lines. and people talking, you know. Because I'm going to tell you my life experience. I'm 50 years old, and I'm telling you my life experience. Most people ain't shit. Most people got hidden agendas, hidden motivations. You'll be lucky to find somebody that are genuinely concerned with you and yours. It's normal to run into people that ain't shit. That don't even surprise me. What does surprise me when you actually run into somebody that's genuine, that mean what they say and say what they mean, that pride themselves in what you see is what you get. That's rare. That's what surprises me. So my point is put your security in something other than weapons, firearms, knives, etc., etc., etc. Put your security and your faith and your trust in something else other than some man-made weapon. All right? That's all I had to say. Black Mud. Storytelling part 7. Actual facts, all true. I probably left out a few details, but the gist of the story is false security in firearms is a no-no. All right. Peace. Hope it helps somebody. Hope everybody doing good. Hope you like, share, subscribe, comment, or not. Either way, I'm going to keep moving. Black Mud. Peace.
Why you have to bring that ball? I ain't saying nothing if it get took.
Y'all want to see a dead body?
Yeah. Trey's daddy blasted somebody last night.
Peace, YouTube. What's good? Black Mud. I got another story to tell. It's not about gun violence, but it's definitely about violence. If you've been following my channel or you subscribe to my page, if you subscribe to my channel, you know I've been doing this series called Storytelling. I think it's part 1 through 9. I think this will be 9 or 10. I can't keep up with this. If you check out my channel, I got a playlist called Storytelling. Part 1 through 9 or 10. I think this is going to be 10. But I got a story to tell today about something that truly shaped my life. Again, all of the stories that I'm telling, well, most of them, are stories that took place before I was in the 6th grade. So this is between the grades of 1st through 5th, because my life took a 360 change when I got in the 6th grade. So I know the stuff that I'm telling you took place before the 6th grade. So I had to be 7, 8, 6. Can't remember the year, but I definitely remember it was before I was in the 6th grade. I was still in elementary school. Well, you heard the beginning. Everybody know that iconic movie from Boys in the Hood, that line from the movie Boys in the Hood when Ice Cube played Doughboy, and they were walking down the railroad tracks, him and his other 2 or 3 little friends. And Ice Cube, Doughboy asked him, "You want to see a dead body?" And maybe I shouldn't use the word DEAD, but that's what he said. That's what he asked. And he took them, and they found an unalived body as little kids, like that was normal. Well, I got a story to tell. When I saw that movie years later, after my experience. That movie and that particular scene right there hit so close to home for me. Mind you, I'm with a group of rowdy rebel type brothers, probably about 12 of us, 10 of us. We all went to see the movie at the same time. But that particular scene, when we were watching that movie, hit so close to home for me, and I never even told anybody that, but this is the story of my friend C and I when we found an unalived human being as kids. Our day started out normal. We had a park in the neighborhood called the Frederick Douglass Center. All the local kids went to that park. It had a basketball court. It had a building, like an administrative building with like indoor activities. Just a lot of stuff for young kids to, stay off the street. A lot of different programs, speakers, motivational speakers, guests. They would even give out like free lunches, So this particular day we woke up and we knew they were planning something at the Frederick Douglass Center this day. I can't remember the day, but if I'm not mistaken, it was on a weekend. It was on a Saturday because we didn't have school. And it was early in the morning. So we wanted to get up there early because once it got packed, you would have to sit like in the back, and we would always like to get first dibs on the little lunches they gave out. So we always wanted to be in the front, So this is just a normal mornings, early, sun was out, bright, and on our block, we could cut right through the backyards. We had a clear shot. If we cut right through the right backyard, right in the middle of the block, cut through the backyard, cross over to the alley, cross in the other neighbor's backyard, onto the street the actual Frederick Douglass Center was on. So that was a normal thing for us. We always cut through the neighbor's yard. It wasn't a big deal. It was a real close-knit neighborhood back then. I think it was maybe the 80s, early 80s. So this particular day, we cut through the backyard, and we were just talking, and we were distracted for a second by something that was going on up in the tree, because like maybe an acorn or something. A lot of the neighborhoods back then, when you cut through people's backyard, they had like peach trees, cherry trees. In residential neighborhoods, everybody had some type of fruit tree, apple trees. And I think this particular house we were cutting in, backyard that we were cutting through, I think these were peach trees. So we were distracted by, like, the peaches. A couple peaches fell from the top of the tree, and we noticed it was a squirrel up there. And the squirrel, I guess the squirrel was up there trying to get at some of the peaches or whatever. But we stopped and looked for a second. We looked up and we started to walk, and we noticed to our left there was this piece of plywood, a long sheet of plywood, maybe 6x8, something like that, piece of plywood. And we saw a pair of feet, no socks, a pair of feet hanging from under the piece of plywood. Now, mind you, we little kids, man. I remember this so vivid. And so we started to walk closer and closer to the plywood, and then we began to see legs. And that's when we discovered this was a person. And we didn't realize immediately that the person was not with us anymore. I think either me or him, now this is the part I can't remember, either him or I, or possibly it was a lady. And I knew this because either him or I, or possibly her face was already slightly exposed. She wasn't fully covered with a piece of plywood. And that's when we seen it was a lady, a fair-skinned or a light-skinned lady. And there was a sock tied around her neck, similar to this one, a tube sock, I guess you would call it. It didn't have that Nike swoosh on it, but it had like those old school stripes. I think the stripe was red and blue. If you watch some of the old school NBA games on YouTube or something, you'll see the socks that the old school players used to wear. And there were socks just like that. It was a sock just like that, and it was tied around her neck. And the knot was in the front. And she didn't have on any clothes. I mean, she was naked. And I remember thinking, we both looked at each other I remember us both looking at each other, not saying anything. But I remember when he looked at me and I looked at him, his mouth was open and my mouth was open. So we probably looked at each other and we looked at each other like this. And at the same time, we took off running back to the front. And I think the first adult we saw to tell was maybe his older brother, my friend C's older brother. And initially he didn't believe us. He told us to show him. And we took him back over there and showed him. It was a young lady who didn't have on any clothes, and the sock was around her neck. I know now it looked like she might have been strangled or something, and possibly violated. But yeah, man, we really, I really had an experience just like this one.
Why you have to bring that ball? I ain't saying nothing if it get took.
Y'all want to see a dead body?
Yeah. Trey's daddy blasted at somebody last night.
That was a real story. I remember seeing that movie in the theater, man. And when I saw that, I was like, wow. When I was little. But like I said, man, it was I try to make firearm related content, self-preservation, self-defense, legal content for this channel. So this may not be firearm related, but it's definitely related to protecting yourself and someone losing their life senselessly. That's it, man. That's the story I had. And I'm telling the story just like I tell all the other stories. Hopefully it'll give people an insight to who I am and why my channel is the way it is, and why my hobby, which is firearms and any kind of personal defense tools, predominantly firearms. This is why my channel is like it is. But if you go back, check out the playlist under storytelling, part 1. Some interesting stuff, man, all factual. Some of it I don't get any glory in telling, but a lot of it is to help to detour anybody that might want to make some of the decisions I made in the past. But anyway, that's it. Thanks for listening. Y'all stay safe, stay blessed, stay wise. Protect yourself at all times. Stay frosty. Peace, Black Mud. Yeah, man. The story ended. We ended up telling his older brother, and then he went and told someone, and the news and everybody showed up, police, and it went from there. At that point, we were pushed back. I don't know what happened after that, but as an adult, I'm sure that the typical protocols took place shortly after that. But I want to say, man, rest in peace to that lady whom I didn't know, and prayers and blessings to her family. Peace. Peace. YouTube. What's good? I hope everybody in good spirits. Hope everybody don't have nothing but good news, no bad news. Black Mud. Shout out to everybody that's been supporting my channel thus far. Appreciate it. If you've been following my channel, I got a playlist entitled Storytelling. And I do a series of true stories, true events that took place in my life, firearm related mostly. And I've done 1 through 10 so far. So strap in, because this is part 11. I got a story to tell. This is the story of when my friend and I, well, I'm just gonna tell the story. I don't want to give it away. It's kind of funny, but trust me when I tell you it wasn't funny at the time. It was very scary, very nerve-wracking. So this was probably around, I won't say the year, I'll just say I was around 21, 22 years old. I was old enough to buy alcohol, so I think I was 21, 22 years old. So my friend and I, we'll call him C, we were hanging out with some girls. Now, this city that I live in, this particular side of town, the east side of town, is pretty much known for having a lot of Mexican Americans. So this side of town is a lot of Mexican people, which I don't have any problem with. It just happened to be my friend and I were hanging out with 2 Mexican young ladies that we met. And we were over their house. We was over somebody's house. Pretty sure it was somebody's parent. I don't know, but we were all there alone. I think it was me, him, the 2 young ladies we were with, and maybe some other ladies and another guy, one of the cousins or something. Well, we were the only black dudes there. So, we at this time, to give you sort of a feel of what time period it was in, if you're my age, this was a time when people were drinking Boone's Farm and drinking 40 ounces. Not a bottle of beer, a 40 ounce of beer. So needless to say, my friend and I were drinking 40 ounces of beer, and somebody got the ladies some Boone's Farm. If you know Boone's Farm, you know what era I'm talking about. And somewhere along that, we ran out of beer in Boone's Farm. And so we were gonna make a store run. We did make a store run. So we got in the car. I remember my friend, his mom, she had something to do with law enforcement. She was either a deputy sheriff, a CO, or something to that effect. I just know she had on a police uniform. She had a gun and a badge. But I never seen her in a patrol car. but she definitely had something to do with law enforcement. And we were driving her car. He was driving her car. She had just got it. It was a Pontiac Le Mans, a little small gray car. It was real fast. It was a real fast car at the time. I won't say fast. I'll say speedy and zippy. Zippy car. But it was a popular vehicle at the time, Pontiac Le Mans. And like I said, we were on the east side of town, Mexican town. So we left the house, headed to the store. They gave us directions to a store that was close to their house. And so we headed down the street. We got about maybe a block away from the house. And we noticed a car was behind us real close with the lights off. So we couldn't even make out what kind of car it was. We knew it was a dark colored car, and we're going down a residential block, and the car is like close on us like this, just. And so after about maybe 10, 20 seconds, we noticed the car. We like, who the hell is this behind us? We ain't tripping. Plus, I was strapped. I was illegally carrying a firearm. Illegally carrying a firearm. That's going to be key later on in the story. So this car stayed behind us for about maybe 20 seconds, 30 seconds maybe. And then all of a sudden we seen these two blue lights light up on the dashboard. Bleak, bleak, bleak. Blue and red light, police lights. That's when we realized it was an undercover police officer. So we stopped immediately. It was cars on the east side of the street, real narrow street. So it was a two-way street, but it was a narrow street. So we stopped right in the middle of the street. They jumped out in their undercover garb. And this was when police were driving those undercover Crown Victorias. So they were in a dark colored, a black, actually not a Crown Victoria. It was it was an Impala, those Caprices. But anyway, so they jumped out. One ran to my side. Mind you, when we stopped and we realized it was a police, and they turned the lights on, I told you I had a loaded firearm, illegal firearm. And I hurry up. Now I'm young, I'm green as we call it. So I hurry up and try not to let the police officer see me moving. So I took the firearm from my pocket or wherever I had. I can't remember where I had it. And I reached up and opened the glove box and dropped it down in the glove box and closed it and turned it and locked it. It locked, so you couldn't open it. Actually, I tried to lock it and it wouldn't lock. That's key. I tried to lock it and it wouldn't lock. So one police officer ran to my side, one is on his side, and they say, just keep your hands up. So we got our hands up like this. We got our hands up, and they're scrambling on the floor around our legs, next to us on the seat, obviously looking for drugs or whatever. And as they doing this, they scrambling around on the floor. Don't move. Reaching, looking for stuff. So they must have thought we were hiding drugs. We didn't have any drugs at the time. But I remember thinking when I put that firearm in the glove box, man, I hope he don't go in that glove box. I hope he don't go in the glove box. So as he's scrambling around, literally, I am not exaggerating, he reached for the glove box to open it. Mind you, I tried to lock it and couldn't lock it. He reached for the glove box. He didn't get his hand quite on the glove box, but as he was reaching, his partner got a call on the radio. I couldn't understand what they said, but he called over to his partner and said, "Hey, we got to get out of here. Let's go." And I swear, the moment he said that, the guy that was on my side was just about to reach into the glove compartment and open it, and he'd have found that firearm that I had. It was a fully loaded 32 revolver. And when I say we were shitting bricks, the police officer, as a matter of fact, I say about maybe a minute maybe a little less than a minute had gone by. They searching, telling us to keep our hands up, don't move. They looking, and somewhere along that, the police officer that was on my friend's side, he was like, "What the hell? Did somebody shit themselves in here? Someone shit themselves?" I remember thinking, I was so scared. I was passing gas like a mother. You understand? I was so scared that I was passing gas. Have you ever been scared and your anxiety was high? You understand what I'm talking about. I'm in this bitch pooting like a motherfucker. So the officer, like I said, right when the guy got the call, he was reaching for the glove box to open it. He said, "We got to get out of here. Let's go." And they both told us, "Y'all get the fuck out of here, or get out of here, or stay out of trouble," or something to that effect, and they let us go. And I remember thinking, mind you, we was on our way to the store to get some more beer because we about to hang out with these girls. It's about to go up, we about to kick it. Man, when police officers let us go, bro, we never went to the store. I think he was driving. He dropped me off at home, and he went home. We never went back to the chick's house. We didn't want to press our luck with that side of being on that side of town. After what we had been through, man, we stood them up. I remember they were calling, and we wouldn't answer the phone. They were going back and forth, calling his house, calling my house. This is before we had cell phones. So this give you a year. So he calling, they calling his house. They called in my house. They called. We wouldn't answer, dude. And I remember when we finally did meet up with the girls somewhere. I remember we had the conversation about what happened, and we told them that story, man, and we cracked up. The, especially about the part when the officer said, "Did somebody shit themselves?" And I remember, man, I probably passed gas like 3 or 4 good raunchy ones, and I smelled it. So I know when that officer said that, I was so scared. It was so funny, but I was so scared I couldn't even laugh. And I remember when they let us go, we put off, we cracked up in a very nervous way. And we went straight home, stood our dates up, everything. Never got the liquor, never got the beer, never got the Boone's Farm, and never got, you know. But yep, that's what happened, man. That's the time I got pulled over by the police, and the police did not find the gun. Please don't make that mistake. Peace. Peace, you too. What's good? Shout out to everybody that's been supporting my channel thus far at Black Mud. Today, if you've been following my channel, you know I got a playlist, and under the playlist, the title of the playlist is called Storytelling. And I just been sharing some true stories, true experiences, negative, that I had throughout my life with firearms. And I got a series called Storytelling. It's part 1 through 11. And this is going to be part 12 of my storytelling series. This is the time that an armed criminal broke into my house while I was in there. I was a little kid in the bed, and the guy broke in our house. Stay tuned. Like I said, this is part 12. Excuse me. Finishing up my orange. I don't know if you can hear my voice. Just getting over some 24-hour bug. So forgive my voice. But this is part 12 of my storytelling series. I got a story to tell. This is the story of when an armed criminal broke into our house, into a place where I was living, and robbed us. And he had a gun. The crazy thing is, if you listen to any of them, I think part 6 or part 7, I told the story of how I pretty much grew up in the system. I grew up in the system. I went through foster care, adoption, etc., everything that comes along with that. And this was a time, let's put it this way, this was before I was in the 6th grade. So I had to be around 8, 9, 10 maybe. Definitely before I was in the 6th grade. So I used to live by myself in a house. And this was one of those times that I grew up in a real close-knit neighborhood. And a lot of the neighbors were real close. They knew my father. He was like a staple in the neighborhood for many reasons. But he passed away. And let's just say as a kid, I now understand why I ended up in this system. Because when my father passed away, other members of my family, for whatever reason, didn't step up. But during that time, before I was taken away by the system, I stayed. I used to live. Excuse me. I used to live by myself as a kid. I would get up every morning, get myself dressed, go to school, normal routine, just without adults. This particular time, at night, because the neighbors were so close-knit, everybody that stayed in that block where I stayed at knew my situation. So people instinctively looked out for me. This particular day, normally I would stay over a neighbor's house, get dressed, get up in the morning, go to my house, get dressed for school, and go to school. That's what I would normally do. But for some reason, this night, I ended up having to stay in the house by myself. I don't know why. It was a long time ago. The nature of the story is true, but the details might be sketchy because it was kind of a long time ago. But this particular day, I couldn't find nobody's house to shack up in, so I had to go in the house that my father owned and go to the house by myself. So I went there by myself, got in the bed. Mind you, the bedroom had a window at the foot of the bed, a small window. And the houses were really close. But you could walk between the houses, and you could literally touch both houses if you stretch your arms out. You could touch both houses. So where we lived at, it was a small space between the houses. And this particular night, I was in the bed, and I was either asleep and was woken up, awakened, or I was already awake. Needless to say, I heard a noise in that window that was at the foot of my bed, and I didn't know what it was, but I heard glass break. And when I heard the glass break, I sort of jumped and got under the covers, and I realized somebody was trying to get in that window. Now, mind you, this is right at the foot of my bed. So they had to crawl over my bed once they got in the house. So I'm laying there in the bed. I hear what I think was a man break the glass, get the window open, and slowly begin to climb in the window at the foot of the bed where I was at. So I tucked my feet back so he wouldn't touch my feet as he was coming in the window, and I froze stiff. And it was dark, so I could see his silhouette and the light coming through the house from the window that he had broken. So as he was crawling through the window, crawling over my bed, I sort of pulled my legs back so he wouldn't land on my legs, and I had my eyes peeping out of the covers, and I could see that once he got in, the bed was bouncing. He jumped over the bed. I could see once he got off the bed, he pulled a firearm from. It looked to be a firearm, like it was a revolver or something. And he pulled the firearm out. Now, mind you, I'm peeking. It's kind of dark. I see light coming through the window. And so he takes off in the house. The house is pitch black. And I could hear him rummaging through shit. I don't know how much time went by, but I know I laid there in that bed, frozen, paranoid, stiff, afraid. I didn't move. And I guess a short time went by, and he came back maybe 2 or 3 times to the room and was sitting something on the floor next to the bed. So after about 2 or 3 times of this, he finally began to, whatever he had taken, he began to climb back over the bed and climb out of the window with whatever he had stolen. Mind you, I'm still in the bed. I ain't moving. I am fucking terrified. So after he went out of the window, he never came back in. I laid in the bed, still hiding under the covers, and I don't know how long I was there, but I didn't go back to sleep. I stayed there wide awake, wide awoke, terrified, not knowing if this guy was going to come back. So slowly but surely the sun came up. And what made me finally get out of the bed is because every morning one of my older brothers would get off of work and he would come over to the house in the morning to check on me. And I remember hearing him come through the front door, and I finally jumped up out of the bed and told him everything that happened. Now when I jumped up, I noticed there was like some frozen food at the end of the bed. I noticed the freezer on the refrigerator, and the refrigerator door was open. So the guy must have stole a bunch of frozen food out of the refrigerator, and he forgot and left some right at the foot of the bed when he climbed out. But after I told my brother what had happened, he called the police and whatnot, went through the whole process. But I just remember that whole situation terrified me. To have somebody break in the house. Now, mind you, I told you I was a little kid. This is before I was in the 6th grade. This grown-ass man broke in the house with a firearm while I was in there, in a house, by myself, asleep, no adults around. Just thank God that nothing else happened to me. He didn't even know I was in the house. But yeah, man, that's the story. Man, thinking about it right now is sort of giving me chills. 'Cause I was a little ass kid, man, in elementary school. But thank God I'm still here. Thank God nothing happened to me. And I hope nobody else goes through that shit because it's traumatic. I still ain't got over that. Still paranoid. That's why I got so many of these right now. That's one of the reasons. But yeah, that's the story when an armed burglar broke into my house, robbed us of all of our food, frozen foods, and I don't know what else he got, but he definitely went to the refrigerator, and which telling me he must have been a crackhead or some shit like that. But yeah, man, thank God nothing happened to me. I'm here to talk to you today and tell you the story. Thanks for listening. Black Mud, peace. Oh yeah, one more thing. It was a piece of orange stuck in my tooth the whole time. So I hope you can get past that and hear the story. Sorry about that. But I got it, see? Sorry about that. Try not to be distracted by the chunk of orange in this side of my mouth. Thanks, Black Mud. Peace.